Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCEU Daily. I am Mick. I am your host with the most. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and welcome. So let's talk about the DCEU, and first of all, let's go on a James Gunn Twitter watch. Right, first of all, someone asked him this. I have a question on this. You said that your favorite DC movie is probably Superman 2 and that you've seen it plenty times. So I'm curious, why aren't you interested in making a Superman movie? I don't remember having said I wasn't interested in that. That said, just because I love beef stroganoff doesn't mean I have a desire to make it. In fact, many years ago, I think, when he wasn't a DC guy and he was on Guardians of the Galaxy, I kind of remember him saying he wasn't particularly interested in making Superman. But as I just quote tweeted James, politely, as I said to David F. Sandberg, considering Mr. Hamada and Mr. Emmerich have retired Superman movies, and I said it like that on purpose, right, to trigger a response, because I want to know officially what the stance is. It doesn't matter whether one wants to make a Superman movie or not. If the character's been retired, it doesn't matter. Leave Superman alone. Stop talking about him. If you're not interested in making his movies, fine. The truth is, James Gunn or David F. Sandberg are not suited to making a Superman movie. It's as simple as that. And so, it doesn't really matter whether you want to make one or not. They've retired him. Now, I know David Zaslav won't let that happen now. He knows that Superman's big news. But the point is, we ain't had any Superman since 2017, right? Personally, I think anyone who retires Superman should be retired themselves. So that's one James Gunn tweet, very interesting. But there's more, everyone. Right. So this is James Gunn again, going on about this Superman thing. Whatever the case, I'm currently working on a lot of projects, including a few unknown to the general public. And I'm speaking for where I am right this moment, not tomorrow, next year, or 5 years down the line. So pretty much, he's busy, too busy for Superman. Then he says this. Well, so that's interesting, because this tweet was quote tweeted by James. It's now been deleted because they were talking about something he said about DC or whatever. Anyway, he goes, well, hang on again. Well, what is said was, basically he meant to say what I said was, there are presently no characters at either Marvel or DC that I want to be working with right now that I'm not. So this is interesting, isn't it? So he plays with words, and I quote tweeted him saying, I love the way James plays with words. So he goes, I'm not interested in no characters at either Marvel or DC that I want to be working with right now that I'm not. In other words, he could be working with some DC characters and plotting and writing and things like that. So he's playing with words. And yes, I know it's either obtuse or linguistically Olympian, depending on your point of view. So that's what he's saying. But actually, he goes on. So basically, he's just actually replying to someone. So that's interesting. Very interesting because what's interesting about all of this, everyone, and we'll get into this if I can actually find my next article. Right, yeah. So basically, what's interesting about this is that someone asks him, points out to him that he loves Superman 2, whether that's true or not, but apparently he loves Superman 2. So they asked him, why don't you want to make a Superman film? And he goes, well, I don't remember saying I didn't want to make a Superman film. He's kind of look, I think he's a Superman fan. I don't think making a Superman film is to his strengths. So I wouldn't want him as a Superman fan making a... David F. Sandberg said he's too scared to make a Superman film. Well, that's good, because I don't want you making a Superman film anyway. So that's handy Harry, isn't it? I only want people making a Superman film that actually like and understand and get Superman. Todd Hill, being the showrunner of Superman and Lois, actually likes and knows Superman. And say what you want about Zack Snyder's Superman interpretations, but at least he was brave enough to do it. And even with all the flack he's got, he stands on the hill and he dies on it, right? Unlike these people, like David and Sam, going, I'm too scared to make Superman or Star Wars. People might be horrible to me. Get used to it, mate. People are trolling me all day. I deal with it. I shrug my shoulders and move on. We all do. So anyway, let's talk about David F. Sandberg, right? No, let's not talk about David F. Sandberg. Let's talk about David Zaslav. That's what I'm supposed to say. I'm really off form today. Anyway, so let's talk about David Zaslav. Let's put ourselves in his position. So basically, right, what you do, you come to Warner Brothers, right? You take it over. You've invested a hell of a lot of money to buy this company. You know it's a mess. You know it needs revitalizing. You look at the film, the amount of money they've made on films each year in the past 5 years. It's not good. You look at the mess of the Harry Potter franchise, not the Harry Potter films, but the Fantastic Beasts situation, the Johnny Depp situation, the Amber Heard situation, the Joe Rowling situation. Wherever you look, it's an absolute mess. What you do about it? And then you look at the DCEU and you just look at it and you fucking laugh and you think, what business person would have allowed this franchise to hobble on after Justice League? Actually, who would have allowed this situation to hobble on even after Batman versus Superman, as much as I love BVS? So, you know, he's looking at what you do if you're David Zaslav. I keep on thinking about David F. Sandberg. I've got to get him out of my head, man. What's going on with me? So, what you do? Well, I think you look at the DCEU and you think, fuck, man, this isn't going to work, right? So maybe it could have worked with the multiverse strategy from Walter Hamada, right? But then the Ezra Miller thing happened. Then they delayed the movie. There's clearly a problem. There could be a scenario where Zaslav says, you know what? We can release Black Adam. We can release Fury of the Gods. We probably can release Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We ain't releasing the Flash movie as it is, because that's the movie that reboots the universe. And maybe Zaslav's seen the movie and thought, I don't like the way they reboot the universe, right? Clearly, if it's true that they're like getting rid of Supes, obviously we already know from the Variety article that Zaslav wants a hell of a lot of Supes. So don't we all, who understand superheroes and understand how important that character is to millions of people around the world? You know, the propaganda merchants can say what they want. Superman is relevant to a hell of a lot of people. And, you know, they're facts at the end of the day. Whether you like those facts, whether you want to hear those facts or not, they're facts. So that's one thing he could do. Not release the Flash movie, but release the other movies. But the truth of the matter is, and we know this, whether they release every single one of the movies they've made, they realise the DCEU is not fit for purpose. So while they're constructing a DC Studios and making this plan, they could absolutely release all the upcoming DCEU content that's actually been made. And don't forget, the last DCEU movie we had was James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which didn't do well in theatres, but it's going to be over a year. If they keep to these dates, if they keep to this next slate, right, it'll be well over a year till we see the next DCEU movie, which they're not even promoting, by the way. And that's Black Adam in October. Let's see what happens with that. So they could just release these movies, do minimal marketing, because they just simply don't give a fuck. But even if they don't give a fuck about the future of the DCEU and they're trying to construct something else, you know, they're still going to be wanting to make as much money as possible. They can't really, if they're not supportive of what Andy, what's his bloody name? I forgot the bloody director of The Flash's name. Isn't that great, right? Andy Muschietti, that's right. So if they're not happy with what Andy Muschietti has done with The Flash and what Hamada has done with The Flash, they may think to themselves, right, we ain't releasing this movie. Maybe they'll reshoot it a bit. Maybe they'll realign it. Maybe at the end of the movie, they'll find a way to get rid of Ezra Miller. Who knows? So that movie can't happen the way it is right now. From what Zaslav is telling people, he wants Superman, right? And he wants Batman. Apparently, and I don't know how true it is, he liked BVS. I don't know if that's true or not. But at the end of the day, it's clear that he isn't in the same mind of Emmerich and Hamada on how the DCEU should proceed. So whether they show these movies or not, the DCEU is most probably done. So going forward, what can we do? Well, Hamada's done something actually quite clever. He's kind of putting together a young DC, if you like. He's doing Xolo with Blue Beetle. He's doing Leslie Grace with Batgirl, Sasha Calais' Supergirl. He's just cast KJ Apa and another young as the Wonder Twins. So there's a lot going on there. So this is a good idea because young people will love those guys. They're all in very popular situations. Sasha Calais is very popular on social media. KJ Apa is a huge star of Riverdale. Xolo, of course, is obviously involved with Cobra K as well. So Leslie Grace is also very popular. She was in The Heights. So, you know, these are good situations for the company. So bringing in these kind of younger DC stars is a really, really good idea. It looks like to me, maybe Hamada is trying to implement a Young Justice situation, which is really cool. But Zaslav could be looking at this younger DC cast and thinking, yeah, I like it, but I don't want it connected to the DCEU because I don't want anything connected to the DCEU. This is what Zaslav could be thinking. So, right, take these stars, these young stars, Xolo, Leslie Grace, Sasha Calais, and fix it. Fix those movies, right? We're not going to show the Flash movie, so Sasha Calais needs a Supergirl movie, right? Maybe. Or maybe she can cameo in other people's movies. Maybe they could divorce Leslie Grace's Batgirl from the DCEU, if it's even part of the DCEU. Maybe, you know, they can rewrite the Blue Beetle movie so it has nothing to do with the DCEU, etc. You know, and they're doing an Aquaman movie as well. He's probably got nothing to do with the DCEU. So all these Young Justice type of characters could be the new relaunch of a DC live-action universe, having nothing to do with the DCEU. Because I'm putting myself in the position of David Zaslav. I'm looking at the DC Extended Universe as poison, as something I want to get away from, right? I want nothing to do with the DCEU. Okay? So by getting these young stars that Hamada's brought in for maybe a Young Justice situation, maybe you can relaunch a DC live-action universe with these Young Justice characters, and they can form a Young Justice. Maybe Young Justice is already thinking, whatever. You've got Leslie Grace, you've got Xolo as Blue Beetle. Rolo, is James Gunn only interested in Peacemaker? Well, let's see what kind of a future Rolo James Gunn has got over at DC. Now, clearly the numbers for Peacemaker were very good. I don't know what he's interested in. He did kind of play with words on his tweet. He said he's only interested in the DC and Marvel characters he's working on now. He also made the point that we, the public, don't know what he's working on. What he's actually saying is he's not interested in any DC or Marvel characters he's not already working on. So he could be working on a secret DC project that we don't know about. And I think it's either a Thinker prequel, or it's a Deathstroke movie, and with Joe Manganiello. So I think he's doing something, and he's playing with words there. Sean Franklin, hi Sean. A very good morning from Cyprus to all of you. So we're talking about the DCEU. I've spoken about James Gunn already. Of course, you can go back to the beginning of the video to catch up my conversation about that. And now we're talking about what we would do with the DCEU and DC live action if we were David Zaslav. So, Rolo, the Hamadaverse, we're talking about all of that, yeah. So, I think that Zaslav will look at the Hamadaverse and say, no. He may keep Walter Hamada there. He may give Toby Emmerich an extension to his contract, but micromanage him and keep an eye on him. He may think that Toby is an advantage, considering he brought in James Gunn, considering he brought in Todd Phillips to do the Joker, a movie they're very, very happy with because it made $1 billion. That's why they're happy with the Joker movie. It's about that magic number of $1 billion. There is going to be $1 billion DC live action rule if you're releasing movies in movie theaters. There's going to be ratings on HBO Max where you have to reach to be successful. These are the things. This is primed for success. When I used to work in a mobile phone shop or a cell phone shop, as you Americans say, I had targets. I had to sell a certain amount of prepay and pay-as-you-go phones. And if I didn't, I was going to be in a lot of trouble on my appraisals. It's the same thing here. So I think if I was Zaslav, I'd say, right, the DCEU is poison to us. It doesn't work. I don't want Amber Heard here. Anything that makes them look bad, that makes the business look bad, they're going to have to diverge from. So they will, and they're waiting probably for this libel case to be over. They will somehow get rid of Amber Heard. They will get rid of Ezra Miller. They will get rid of Ezra Miller somehow. Rolo, the Hamadaverse and the Snyderverse should both wrap themselves up. In the meantime, while the new DC Studios develops the new universe. Yes, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're right or wrong in that situation. I think that could be something that can happen. It could be a situation where Hamada is asked to retask the DC live-action universe, my friend. As I said, use these Young Justice characters. Use Zolo as Blue Beetle. Use Leslie Grace as Batgirl and form a new DC live-action universe away from the DCEU. The DCEU is poison. If I'm David Zaslav, I'm looking at the DCEU and I'm going, no, get away from me. You stink, right? The DCEU stinks. It's publicity. It is something you want to get away from. So you can use these characters, these younger actors they've already cast, KJ Apa, Leslie Grace, as I've said, Zolo as Blue Beetle, and create a new Young Justice DC live-action universe. Sean, frankly, you think Henry Cavill, he come back Superman? I have no idea, my friend. I love Henry Cavill as Superman. What's been done to him is absolutely disgusting, but I don't know what the plan is, so I can't tell you if he's coming back. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. So you start a brand new DC universe with these younger versions of these DC characters that has nothing to do with DC live action. It's as simple as that. Now, right, there's rumors that Zack Snyder may be the new president of a DC Studios. Now, I know that's very triggering to a lot of people, and it's also very exciting to another amount of people. So, right, Zack Snyder doesn't have the qualifications to be a president of a studio. But here's an interesting little thing that you may not know. His wife, Deborah, has all the qualifications to be a president of a studio. Rolo, I'm not interested in Batgirl. The actress looks nothing like her, and the woman who wrote Birds of Prey is on the movie. Yeah, I know that. And she is Hamada's girl, if you like. Listen, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. I can only go on what Christina's done in the past. She is a big fangirl. Maybe she hasn't got the ability to write good stuff. I don't know. Apparently, the Flash film has been well received, which she's written by test audiences. So maybe she was pushed to write Birds of Prey a certain way. Obviously, Bumblebee wasn't the greatest of movies, but some people actually liked it. And so there is that. But anyway, Batgirl could be rewritten, could be reshot as a movie that has nothing to do with the DCEU. Same with Blue Beetle, same as Aquaman, same as Wonder Twins. A brand new franchise that young people would embrace. Get away from the DCEU, start again with a Young Justice team and Young Justice members' individual movies. If I was David Zaslav, considering they're already there, this would be a really good idea. And maybe this is what they're looking to do. So basically, there's rumors that Zack Snyder may be president of a DC studio. And as I say, he hasn't got the qualifications to do it. But his wife, Deb, has. She's a producer. She worked in the commercial sector before she met Zack. She met Zack via him making commercials, directing commercials. So Deb Snyder actually has the qualifications to be a co-president of a DC Studios with Zack Snyder. Zack could be the creative guru, right? And she could be the brains of it. Not that Zack hasn't got brains, but you know what I mean, right? So I know a lot of you would be opposed to this, and a lot of you would love this. Personally, I think, look, I don't know. You know what I think. I think Bruce Timm is the man for the job, or someone like that. It wouldn't surprise me if Zaslav has already sounded Kevin Feige out as well. I'm not going to reject that possibility. Again, some of you may not want that, but I think that could be a thing. So that situation, Rolo, it should either be Jeff Johns, Bruce Timm, or Paul Dini. I mean, Jeff Johns would get a lot of hate because of what happened with he was running DC, don't forget, for a while, DC live action. It didn't go too well, and he admitted it wasn't his strength doing it. So I doubt it will be Jeff Johns. Paul Dini is a good guy. You could have Bruce Timm and Paul Dini together. Basically, you want a DC Studios run by someone who understands the characters, that has good business acumen, and that can produce movies, right? And then you want to populate it with good producers, but also comic book writers as well. Alan Heinberg was a Wonder Woman comic book writer. He wrote the first Wonder Woman. He did a great job, right? So you want more comic book writers sitting there with screenwriters, you know, at least consulting with them to do these movies. That's what a DC Studios needs, right? And in a lot of ways, I think phase one of the MCU had that as well. Not so much now because of the direction they're going in, but they definitely had that. And I tell you what, I'm really angry with this video because this fucking sun is ruining the lighting. So sorry about the lighting. It looks a bit grainy and stuff. So I do apologize for my picture quality, but I hope you can hear me properly and kind of see me anyway. And so, yeah. So I'm not saying I would choose Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder to lead the DC Studios, but let me talk about their positives. Apart from Ezra Miller, right, these DC iconic superheroes were well casted by Zack Snyder. Henry Cavill, pretty good. Now, Ben Affleck wouldn't have been my first choice, but he ended up being a pretty good Batman and Bruce Wayne. Gal Gadot was probably forged in some clay pit somewhere to play Wonder Woman. She's perfect casting. Now, Jason Momoa isn't the Aquaman we see in comics, but he's a fucking brilliant Aquaman. He has all the qualities. I love him, and the mainstream audience love him as well. So, he's really casted these characters well. Now, obviously, it's not a realistic situation for Zack Snyder to run a DC Studios, and a businessman as intelligent as David Zaslav isn't going to allow this to happen. Rolo, Jason Momoa should be Lobo. Interesting. I don't know much about Lobo. I mean, with a multiverse strategy, he could play both characters, but he's one person. He could be making Aquaman and Lobo. And if you're suggesting he plays Lobo instead of Aquaman, they're never going to put a blonde guy there, a white blonde guy there when they've got him. It just sends the wrong message. So that's not going to change, I don't think. And so, yes, listen, a DC Studios is definitely on the cards. What we do not know of this moment, what happens to this DCEU. I personally think the DCEU is done. Now, look, they've made these movies. They have to do something with them. I don't know what the decisions will be about these movies. If they're all connected to the Flash movie, that could be a problem. Maybe that's why they're doing some short little reshoots, pickups for Black Adam. Maybe they'll try and wipe out anything from the DCEU. If they could re-emerge like Shazam and Shazam Fury of the Gods, Black Adam and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom away from the DCEU, maybe they would do that. I think Zaslav would have embraced the multiverse strategy and the new timeline if Superman was front and center in it. But considering what they've done or allegedly done with no Superman going forward or no Henry Cavill Superman going forward, clearly. Now, clearly, if they are doing a Final Crisis storyline, that's different and Superman comes back eventually. But we don't really know what they're doing or what their plans are. For me, personally, if I was David Zaslav, I would try and get away as far away as possible from the DCE as soon as possible. I love Man of Steel. I love Batman versus Superman. I think the first Suicide Squad movie, even though it has so many creative issues, is a watchable movie. Wonder Woman is one of my best CBMs ever. Zack Snyder's Justice League is amazing. That's my opinion. Aquaman is amazing. Top tier comic book fare, for sure. It's after that, it gets a bit murky. Now, Shazam. My nieces and nephews adore Shazam. And I appreciate the fact that families and kids enjoyed that movie, and that's great. I think it's after that things get a bit murky. Now, I'm not including the Joker movie. It's not part of the DCEU, and that was a great thing to do. Very clever. But the other movies, even though I did think James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a pretty neat movie, I didn't like the way he bent the knee to Margot Robbie, especially when she kills that mobster. We know the kind of messages they were pushing there. And he tried to make Harley Quinn, probably on her say-so, some kind of pure hero. That isn't Harley Quinn, right? There is good in Harley, right? But she is a messed up whack job. I didn't really see the whack job part of the character. I did in David Ayer's first Suicide Squad, but not that that was really his version of Suicide Squad, but you know what I mean. Harley Quinn isn't innocent. Harley Quinn wasn't manipulated by the Joker. The Joker and Harley Quinn are a bit like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. They fucked each other up, right? That's the thing. But these SJWs are trying to make it look like Harley Quinn was the victim. Harley Quinn may be nuts, but she was also an intelligent psychologist. And by the way, I loved that in the first Suicide Squad when she was working out the people in the squad and basically analysing them, psychologically analysing them. That showed the intelligent part of the character. You can be nuts and intelligent at the same time. Crazy people are normally so clever, too clever for their own good. So Harley Quinn isn't some innocent victim. She's not a fucking feminist. She's a fucking whack job. She's a bigger whack job as the Joker is. Rolo, she chooses to join the Joker willingly. Yeah, she jumps into the vat of acid. I don't know if that's in the comic books as well. But the point is, she's not a victim. But SJWs like Margot Robbie have grabbed hold of her and turned her into something else, right? That's not who Harley is. Not the Bruce Timm Harley. Now, of course, the Bruce Timm Harley was more accessible to a more wider audience, and I get that she's not kind of, we don't see her cutting people up. But Harley Quinn is willing to kill people, not just for the Joker, for herself. She isn't a good person. She's a whack job, right? Obviously, she's not all there. Neither is the Joker. As I say, she's the Johnny and Amber of the DC universe. It's as simple as that. And so I think something has to be done about Margot Robbie as well. And she's too powerful now, and they're going to keep on giving her that role. I don't like it. Either she's going to have to be put in her place, right, or she's going to have to be removed. If Todd Phillips if Todd Phillips' next DC Black Label movie is a Harley movie with Arthur Fleck, aka Joaquin Phoenix, and they do that whole kind of, the Harley and Joker love story, but properly and dark, a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing. I think, and we get a new actress as Harley, that will be brilliant. If everyone embraces this new Harley Quinn, you don't have to worry about Robbie playing Harley again. Because I want her as far as possible away from the DC Extended Universe. I like her. She's talented. The nut job is now doing a feminist Barbie movie. Good luck to you. That movie will probably never be released. It'll be shit. It'll be a failure. Don't care. Do what you want. Just keep away from this iconic DC live action universe. Because we don't want feminists and propaganda merchants. We want women and men and other people, no matter how they identify as, to enjoy their DC live action. And of course, we want people represented and included in a non-toxic way, right? Look at what A24 have done with that multiversal movie, right? Even though I know there's a shill fest going on and it winds me up, they have taken what Marvel and DC are attempting to do with the multiverse and put it in the real world, with real world situations, right? They have taken the game to Warner Brothers and Disney, and A24 is the future of movies because they're the only ones actually making real fucking movies like we used to watch when I was a kid in the 80s and the 90s and the early noughties. A24 have my support. What I would say to them, please don't sell out to Warner Brothers. Please don't let Warner Brothers or Disney swallow you up. Marvel Studios selling out to Disney, as I said on yesterday's Movies TV Mad Daily Live, was a big, big mistake. So if I was David Zaslav, that's what I would be doing. A brand new DC live action universe, Young Justice, using these young actors they've already chosen in these roles. Roller, other than Matt Reeves' Batman, I'm tired of the multiverse. Yeah, and I mean, I know Matt Reeves is kind of, I mean, we've only just started the multiverse and you're tired of it already. Wow. I mean, it's already started in the MCU. Listen, the problem with Hollywood is if one does something, the other does it, right? One studio had Arnold Schwarzenegger, so the other studios brought in Van Damme, right? Because the tough guy was a trend. I mean, back then we used to call it a fashion, but now it's called a trend, right? So whatever's trending, Hollywood will do. So I don't know who thought of the multiverse first. I know we've seen the multiversal movies. We see multiversal stuff over in the MCU first. But I think that's only because of lots of delays with DC and because they're a clusterfuck, right? And they're run in a bad way. I mean, if you read properly the Variety article that was out last week, you know, what Zaslav and Discovery are saying, yeah, you've made some money on some of your movies, but the fucking franchise and what you've done is a fucking shit show, right? And by pinpointing the Joker movie, right, they're saying, this man came to you with a DC Black Label idea, and you said fucking no. You said no. Who says no to a business opportunity like that? Joaquin Phoenix, Black Label, Todd Phillips. Todd Phillips, right? Everyone said, oh, he's a comedy director. How can he do Joker? Well, Richard Donner did The fucking Omen, right? David F. Sandberg did horror movies, right? But he was cracking me. When you see him talking, he cracks you up. He's a funny guy. Don't judge a book by its cover. You know, just because you do one type of song, it doesn't mean you can't do a different type of song, right? So anyway, if I was David Zaslav, I would go with these younger actors, Leslie Grace, etc., divorce them away from the DCEU, right? Go back, reshoot, rewrite, whatever. Anything that's got the DCEU in it, knock it on the head. Rebrand everything with these young actors. But what also you could do is say, right, this is the new mainstream DC live action universe, right? And maybe we can bring a Connor Kent into that, cast a Connor Kent, like they've done in Titans, right? And then we can say to Zack Snyder, well, this is our mainstream, mate, right? This is not the DCEU, nothing to do with it, right? Now, here's the DCEU, Zack Snyder. Do whatever you want from it. We'll call it Elseworlds, right? We'll call it Elseworlds DC, right? And Todd Phillips, you get to be the president of DC Black Label. There you go, mate. Do whatever the fuck you want over there. Zack, you do whatever you want over there. But here is my babies, right? These young DC Young Justice characters, they are the brand new mainstream DC live action universe. And that is what I would do if I was David Zaslav. Smash the like button if you think I'm onto something here. Now, I do have some articles to read for you, so let's go and do this. Again, when you get to the start of this video, if you haven't seen the start, I do apologize. I was a bit like, and I'll tell you why I was a bit kind of, I couldn't get my words out. It's because this damn picture, because the sun is beaming down on my HD camera and fucking it up. But because when I'm live, I have to be here because my router is there. And if I go too far away from my router, the reception shit is probably not great anyway. So I hope you're enjoying today's DCEU Daily Live. I'm trying my best to do my best. Rolo, Leslie Grace should play a character who was originally Latina. Well, you know what, Rolo? I mean, look, I'm not going to get into this too deeply, obviously, because I'm a host of a YouTube channel and I don't want to get myself in trouble. I personally love Leslie. I think she's talented. I think she's got enthusiasm, and I know, but this is what they're doing now, right? This is what they're doing now. So we have got, and I don't know where Leslie Grace is from, if she's a Latino or not, so I don't want to get her cultural background wrong. So I'm not going to talk about that, right? What I'm going to say is I like Leslie. She said some good things, and I think she could be a great Batgirl person. That's my opinion. But you, of course, Rolo, are entitled to your opinion, because that's what it's all about, my friend. So this is why people come to my channel, because I let them talk. Obviously, people who don't want to talk about film and entertainment and DC live action, you're in the wrong place. People who want to create vendettas, you're in the wrong place, because I have no hatred for anyone. I do this channel and then I go off and I forget it and I get on with my life. But of course, I love you guys and I appreciate your support. So here's an article from Comic Book. This is an interesting one. Lois Lane trends as DC fans debate Zack Snyder's scrap plans for Batman romance, by Aaron Perry. Zack Snyder's original... Thank you for the pop-outs. Thank you. Zack Snyder's original plans for Lois Lane in the Snyderverse have caused quite a stir online. An old report from Screen Rant detailing the plan to have Superman's love interest be romantically involved with Batman rubbed some fans online the wrong way. There were many plans for Justice League sequels that might not see the light of day. Considering everything that's happened with the Snyder Cut already, it would be wise to allow some room for things that may seem impossible. Anyway, the story goes that the director would have had Bruce Wayne pining after Lois Lane after Batman vs. Superman. However, falling in love with the reporter would make his choice in the following movie even tougher. Bringing Superman back would effectively end any chance he had with Lois, but Batman does it anyway. In fact, the larger bit of the mythos would have had the Daily Planet reporter's death be the kickoff point for the Nightmare timeline. After learning of his dark end of their world, Batman would have to travel back in time to make the ultimate sacrifice and save her from her fate by giving up his own life. It's fascinating in a way, but easy to see how people could find those changes to be abrasive. At least it makes for good social media discussion. Check out some of the takes down below. We're cancelling each other over Zack Snyder takes. Unpopular, but I like the idea of Bruce falling in love with Lois in the Snyderverse. Wow. Superman and Lois are meant to be a couple for us because they are our characters, but women who lost her husband by death deserves another man to live remaining the life ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. Lois and Bruce know Clark is dead. He won't come back at the scrap script. So that's interesting. Some takes there. And that is the article, my friends. So very, very interesting. So yes, Zack Snyder did have the plan to actually, when Superman dies, to have Lois Lane and Bruce Wayne, because they're mourning, fall in love and use each other as a kind of mourning kind of shoulder, if you like. And they become lovers. And he makes her pregnant. Now, obviously, we get the nightmare sequence in BVS. When Superman comes in, obviously, a Superman that's under the control of the, whatever it's called, Darkseid's, what's it called anyway? It doesn't matter, right? Darkseid's using something to control Superman. The anti-life equation, that's right. So, he says to Batman, when he pulls his mask off, he goes, she was my world, and you took her from me. And of course, they use that, she was my world thing at the end. This is my world. You are my world. So he says that. She was my world and you took her from me, right? Not only is she dead, he's blaming her for her death, but also they were lovers. So Superman's got all this going on around on his head. He's been manipulated by Darkseid and the anti-life equation, of course. So was this a good idea? Personally, it's one of those Zack Snyder ideas where I think, this is a very interesting way to go. But then you're saying, basically, right, Superman's going to bring up Batman's child. Okay, listen, I can understand when Zack was writing this. He goes, oh, this is a bit different. And he knows he's going to trigger people. Zack loves triggering people. He admitted it on a bunch of interviews while promoting the Snyder Cut. So we know that Zack's kind of this way inclined. But you see the reactions. It wouldn't have worked. It would have got him more hate. And it would have caused more problems for DC live action. So personally, I think you know, Batman and Lois Lane being together. No, it isn't really a good idea, right? I wouldn't mind it personally. It makes sense that, you know, two people who have lost someone, who feel guilty, you know, end up in each other's arms and become lovers. I get it. Superman's dead, right? They don't think he's coming back. Now, would this happen if the Snyderverse is restored? No. As you see from the Snyder Cut, when Lois finds out she's pregnant and Batfleck congratulates Superman. But if you go and if you check out actually the storyboards for Justice League 2 and 3, you know, there was a different take to that. When he finds out, he gets angry and says, you know, I know this is my child. She denies it. So that's not going to happen now. They're not going with that storyline. Alex, Zack Snyder himself has adopted many children, and his original idea was to have Superman adopt the bastard child of Lois and Bruce, and that would have been powerful and accepted if these were original characters. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Alex, if they were original characters, it's great. It's a great storyline in your local soap, in your everyday Coronation Street or something, right? But I'm not saying you can't do this, but it's not going to work. People simply are not going to accept it. There may be some diehard Snyder fans that will fight for this, but ultimately, you just cause more of a fucking problem for what you're doing. So anyway, it's an abandoned idea. It's not going to happen. So, but yeah, I personally wouldn't agree with this. I don't hate the idea, by the way, but because other people hate it so much, I don't want the reputation of DC live action to be in the gutter even further. And I have one more article for you, DC related. Come on. Oh, come off it. Everything goes wrong when you're live, doesn't it, Alex? People would reject it because of how it changes the comics. I wish people were more open-minded. No, that's not the reason. Of course, it's a change, my friend. But, you know, Superman bringing up someone else's child who was with the woman he loved. Look, I know, Alex, you're probably a Snyder fan. I'm a Snyder fan as well. It simply is not going to work for the masses. And that's why it's not going to happen now. Right, and finally we go to Superman and Lois, and we look at something that the showrunner Todd Helbing saying about a crossover. Superman and Lois showrunner addresses potential Arrowverse Naomi crossover. Superman and Lois showrunner Todd Helbing discusses whether or not a crossover between Superman and Lois and the new Arrowverse series Naomi is possible. Well, they'd certainly like Naomi to cross over the CW anyway, because it's not a very popular show. It was never going to be a popular show. By Brendan Klein of Screenrant. The showrunner for Superman and Lois has addressed the rumours around the potential crossover with the new Arrowverse series Naomi. Both series belong to the Arrowverse on the CW, the family of shows based on characters from DC Comics that originated with Arrow in 2012 and eventually expanded to include series like Supergirl, The Flash, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Crossover is very common among these various series, and indeed Superman and Lois is a spin-off of Supergirl, the series that introduced Tyler Hoechlin as the Man of Steel and Elizabeth Tulloch as journalist Lois Lane. The series premiered on the CW in 2021 with Superman and Lois Season 2 currently running and set to conclude on June the 21st, 2022. The newest entry in the Arrowverse is Naomi, which premiered on the CW on January the 11th, 2022. The series, which was created by Ava DuVernay and Jill Blankenship, follows Casey Wolford as Naomi McDuffie, a comic book fan who discovers she has powers of her own. It sounds like Miss Marvel a bit, doesn't it? It's interesting, isn't it, when they all take these minority characters and make them into comic characters who become superheroes that are comic book fans. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Anyway, a comic book fan who discovers she has powers of her own. The series also features Cranston Johnson, Alexander Rafe, Mary Charles Jones, Mozart Muckard, Daniel Puig, and Camila Marino. So far, the show hasn't featured very much crossover with other Arrowverse series, and though Naomi Episode 1 featured a Superman cameo, it was confirmed that it isn't the same version of the character as Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois. Per comic book Superman and Lois, showrunner Todd Helbing discussed the potential for a crossover during a panel at WonderCon in Anaheim. This weekend, he didn't confirm whether or not Naomi was in a different branch of the Arrowverse, leaving future crossover potential open, but he dismissed fans' hopes at a potential crossover this season, citing difficulties with pandemic safety. Basically, they plotted out this season, right? You can't have a Naomi crossover when they've got their plans already. With pandemic safety procedures, he confirmed that it's hard to have those conversations because of the pandemic. I think it's hard in general to get anybody to visit the set. Now, this is interesting because he was asked about crossovers before and he said you'll have to wait till the end of the season. That's interesting. The necessity to have lockdown sets has prevented Arrowverse series from having any sort of major crossover since the Flash's crisis on Infinite Earths in January of 2020. But don't forget, they have had David Ramsey as Diggle crossover in one episode last season. However, that being the sole reason preventing a possible crossover does seem to confirm that Naomi takes place squarely in the Arrowverse proper. If there comes a time that restrictions are less tight, those kinds of crossovers may be possible in the future and would certainly benefit both shows. Well, no. A Naomi crossover doesn't benefit Superman and Lois. It benefits Naomi, a show nobody's talking about. All things considered, Superman and Lois and Naomi are still continuing the grand tradition of the Arrowverse, even if they aren't allowed to be doing so together at the moment. And by the way, Todd Helbing was clever to use the pandemic as an excuse. He has no intention of crossing over with that show. They are both expanding the world, bringing the new characters from DC Comics, while referencing heroes and events from other branches of the Arrowverse. Even if the literal actors who can't be seen with each other, they still very much live in the same world, which is exciting for fans to behold. They don't mention the fact, unfortunately, that Naomi's not doing very well. I've seen Naomi. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with the show. But there you have it. And it hasn't actually been confirmed that Naomi is part of Arrowverse, by the way. But the Scream Rant site do like to get a bit carried away with their own opinions. So we have a DC live-action universe, everyone, that's in tatters. We have a movie called The Batman that hit really well with audiences, but no sequel has been greenlit. Now, Matt Reeves has spoken about a Gotham PD not happening anymore and being replaced with Arkham. Arkham is in development. A Penguin show is in development. Now, the Penguin show is the show that's been officially announced by HBO Max. The Arkham show hasn't yet been officially announced. But as I said, the Batman sequel has not been greenlit yet. It's interesting, isn't it? Why? Maybe Zaslav's $1 billion or out rule has already been established. I don't know. I can't imagine any executives not wanting to give the world more of the Batman. But it's interesting. So listen, David Zaslav is a ruthless businessman. He is invested with Discovery billions of fucking dollars. They are here to make this studio and DC live action successful. And it's not about emotions. And emotions are left at the front door because David Zaslav clearly probably isn't a DC fan. But he clearly knows Superman. He clearly wants more Superman. So expect more people to be given a red card who are working at the studio right now. Expect the initiation of a DC Studios coming very soon. And I just think they should get away from the DCEU franchise as soon as possible. And what I suggested earlier is the best way around this. Get the young actors you've already cast, take them away from the DCEU, Leslie Grace, etc. Create a Young Justice in a new franchise, and then give the rest of it to Zack Snyder. Let him bin the Hamadaverse and do his own thing, and call it Elseworlds, and bring Todd Phillips in and allow him to do a Black Label and him to be the president of a DC Black Label studio. This could be done. But the DCEU is poison. Ezra Miller is not a good look for this studio or DC. Amber Heard is not a good look for this studio or DC. They will be jettisoned. And as soon as I know more about the future of the DCEU, you'll find out first here. Just like when they cancelled The Flash or delayed, sorry, I lost myself there. Sorry, my mistake, although it's probably going to happen. When they delayed The Flash, it was me on this channel who said it was not VFX and something's going on. Guess what? Something's going on. It's all been revealed to you, right? Via articles and leaks. So I was right. Even though people went against me and said, I know what you're talking about. Who are you? You barely got any subscribers. You barely got any views. How do you know? Because I know. You don't need to know how I know. But if you followed my channel for a long time, you know a lot of my takes end up being the right take. And that's because I know what I'm talking about. When someone is still advertising 4 movies in the same year, when those movies apparently are not going to be released altogether in the same year, you know there's a problem. You know, when they're advertising those 4 movies a week before and a week later, they delay The Flash for 7 months, forcing them to change the dates of the other movies, you know there's a problem. I was as excited for the multiverse strategy as anyone else. 80s rewind the times 90s. Good morning, my friend. Good morning. So I was excited for The Flash. I was excited for the multiverse strategy. Then they started talking about replacing Superman. Then they delayed the movie. Then my eyes opened. There is no future for the DCEU. There is a future for these young actors like Zolo, KP Appa, right? Get it right. I was practicing now all morning and I got it wrong. KP Appa, right? KP Appa, right? Leslie Grace. All these young characters, there's an opportunity to do a Young Justice. Give them their own franchise, right? Give the rest to Zack. Give Black Label to Todd. Let's get moving on some very exciting projects. Because whether you like the DCEU or not, or should we call it the Hamadaverse, it's a non-entity. It's always been a non-entity. It doesn't really have many fans. If it had fans, then more people would have supported James Gunn's The Suicide Squad instead of watching it at home on HBO Max. Say what you want, right? I think Snyder fans would have gone to movie theaters if their man's movie was in theaters. They support their director. Ultimately, I think this is the future, and that there's actually no future for the Hamadaverse. Now, I'm going to go in a minute, but if you've got any comments, if you've got anything to say before I go, I'll give you 5 or 10 minutes, but we'll see. There's only 2 of you in the live chat, so I'll wait a little bit. I'll wrap it on, and if anyone wants to say anything to me while I'm still here, you can. Now, you will have another opportunity to talk to me tonight from 6 p.m. UK time on Movies TV Mad Live, where we congregate together and you can ask me or make any points or put your opinions about DC live action, entertainment, TV, and movies in general. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion about what's going on with DC. I think the Hamadaverse is fucked. When I say DCEU, I mean the Hamadaverse. I've been saying it all day, and you probably think I mean all of it. No, the Hamadaverse is not fit for purpose. Not because I'm a Zack Snyder fan, because I am. I was very excited for the Hamadaverse and the multiverse strategy. But it's simply, look, I'm not blaming Walter Hamada for this, by the way. You know, things have conspired against Walter. Ezra Miller's conduct has really fucked up Walter's plans. There's no question about that. So many leaks and things like that. Too many things have been conspiring against him. And yes, Snyder loyalists inside the studio have also been conspiring against him. There's no question about that, everyone. And so it hasn't worked out for Walter, right? So I don't know if he remains. I don't know what's going to happen, right? It wouldn't surprise me if they send him back to New Line Cinema. He'll be all right. Don't worry about Walter. But I certainly think reinvigorating a brand new DC live action with Young Justice, using Leslie Grace and the rest of the young actors they're casting. I mean, they're even doing an Aquaman movie. How many more hints and clues do you need that they're going down the live action Young Justice route? But take it away from the DCEU and implement it as a brand new franchise. Give Zack what he wants. Give him his people, right? Henry, etc., Ben, and Gal, right? Now, the thing is, Gal, what's going to happen if you implement the multiverse, of course, Gal, the thing is, you're never going to get a better Wonder Woman than Gal. Now, on Tuesday, there could be a Wonder Woman 3 announcement as well. We'll have to wait and see. I am a bit confused about one thing as well. So, as I say, you know, whatever they decide to do is problematic because they like Jason. They love Gal as Wonder Woman as and Aquaman. So they don't know. It's a bit difficult for them to kind of say, right, we're done with it when you've got such a great Wonder Woman and such a great Aquaman and such a great Shazam. So maybe there's a compromise that can be reached here. I don't know what that compromise is, but I can tell you the DCEU as it is has no consumer confidence. I've been saying that for a long time. So you can release Black Adam and maybe it won't get many people watching it. Now, The Rock should help it. It's an exciting movie. As the JSA, I think it's going to be a great movie, right? We'll wait and see. Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I don't know. Everyone. It sounds like a good movie, but the leaks make it sound like there's not actually much to the movie. That's my worry about that one. But considering there's not much to most MCU movies, maybe that's okay. Now, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, again, sounds like a very ambitious, exciting movie. Clearly, Atlantis is the Lost Kingdom, right? I think it's going to rise to the surface level or something like that. Exciting. And I am excited for that. But again, if you don't have consumer confidence, I mean, when we heard about the Suicide Squad and we saw the trailers and the marketing, we all got excited. I got excited. I thought this was going to be $1 billion movie. How wrong was I? And it didn't do well in cinemas. And I know there was a new COVID variant and all of that, but it just didn't do enough. It didn't excite fans. And ultimately, it's very sad that the consumer confidence is so low that someone like James Gunn can make a movie and nobody really cares. And that's a shame because the Suicide Squad movie by James Gunn is pretty good in most areas. I think someone like Ratcatcher 2 was amazing and she was great. And especially that sequence where we see the flashback with her and Taiki playing her father. So it's a good movie. I do like the Suicide Squad. I do like James Gunn. I want to be clear about that. But this man Zaslav has to make big decisions and they have to find a way to kind of move away from the DCEU, create something new. Now, maybe in that new timeline, you could just say, oh, well, Gal and Jason is still Aquaman. Sorry, say that again. I'll say it properly. Gal is Wonder Woman and Jason is Aquaman and Zack is Shazam. Maybe you could just do that. Just put them in there and forget about the DCEU. I mean, it'll be weird, but they have to think of some kind of compromise here. Or just keep Gal with Zack. I don't know. I don't know what the plans are. It's very, very interesting. Who knows? On Tuesday, maybe announced that Zack Snyder will eventually direct Wonder Woman 3. But life's not that kind, right? And unfortunately, it does look like Patty Jenkins will direct and co-write a Wonder Woman 3. I don't think Jeff Johns is coming back again. I would think that is impossible. I'm surprised Jeff Johns, a talented writer like Jeff Johns, had anything to do with Wonder Woman 84. I am staggered how basic and how many mistakes, right, and own goals and schoolboy errors, right, that film has got. It's ridiculous. This has been the DCEU Daily with me, Mick, here on Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And don't forget, I'll be back tonight from 6 p.m. UK time for Movies TV Mad Live, where you can have your say. So make sure you do have your say. Rolo, I'm sure they just put Jeff's name on it. Well, do you know what? That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously, it depends who you talk to. Some people hate Jeff Johns. Some people love Jeff Johns. I think Jeff Johns was put in an impossible situation as Zack Snyder was. And they just didn't agree with what each other were doing, right? Because they've all got different ideas, like we have. We've all got, if we've got different ideas about how DC should be, imagine two creative. If Jeff Johns was put in charge of a DCEU from the beginning, I think we would have seen a different result. But his reputation's not great right now. So I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that the DCEU is poison. The Hamadaverse is poison. There is no consumer confidence. Something must be done to create consumer confidence. Now, if Walter Hamada's multiverse strategy, starting with the Flash movie actually was smart enough to keep Superman and a brand new young Batman, that would have been pretty awesome. But they didn't do that. Then Ezra Miller lost his shit. The film was delayed. And now the DCEU has no consumer confidence, no trust in its Flash, no trust in its mirror. And it must be put to bed and something new must be started. And I believe a Young Justice, brand new DC live action Central Universe with Leslie Grace and Sasha Calle and the people they've got there right now would be the best thing. So until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, and I really hope you're enjoying what I'm doing with the channel and enjoyed today's DCEU Daily. Sorry the picture's too bright. That's because of the sun. Nothing I can do about the sun, but I will be back tonight when it's dark and scary. See you again soon. Until we see each other again. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget, if you like me, share the channel, like the channel, let people know there's a guy talking about entertainment, TV and movie and DC live action, right? A guy who doesn't think he's famous or anything special. Just a guy who's got a bit of confidence and wants to talk about the stuff that he loves, who doesn't think he's better than you, understands that we're just a bunch of geeks and nerds talking about geek and nerdy stuff. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm not John Campion. I'm not Grace Randolph. I mean, I don't even have the hair. But at the end of the day, I'm just here because I love this shit. And I know you do too. So let's love this shit together. I'll see you tonight. Until then, goodbye.